The Soul Sovereignty podcast is a deep dive into the core wounds and deeply embedded subconscious beliefs that reside within the collective psyche so that you can reclaim your sovereignty and embody your power to experience freedom in your relationships. It is hosted by Jessica Falcon, International Soul Embodiment Guide and Relationship Coach. Visit thepathtosovereignty.com to enter a portal of transformation.
Emotional sovereignty. We're going to dive into why your feelings are not your truth and yet an essential path to reclaiming your sovereignty and your power on today's Soul Sovereignty podcast with myself, Jessica Falcon. And this is actually a 7-part series. We're going to start with today's topic on emotional sovereignty and then move into other aspects of sovereignty on the next 6 episodes of the podcast. So be sure to subscribe on your favorite platforms so that you don't miss one of those episodes. And emotional sovereignty is very important right now because there's a lot happening in the world. It's easy to get wrapped up in all the things going on internally, externally, whether it's something with your own relationship, whether it's because you're watching the news, whether it's because things are coming up at work. It's just, right? We're in the fire year horse astrologically. There's a lot happening. There's a lot moving and a lot of emotions can arise. And maybe you're well versed in connecting to the emotions, allowing yourself to feel or move the emotions. Maybe you're connected to the fact that your emotions are neutral energy, and that's still different than emotional sovereignty. Or maybe you tend to minimize your emotions. Maybe you tend to push them down, tell yourself they don't matter, try to rationalize your way through them, because that doesn't work either. I used to be very good at that when I was a criminal prosecutor, before I really came into my feminine power, before I came into my sovereignty. I judged emotions. I judged feelings as weak. I judged myself as weak if I felt something. Did not want to be vulnerable. Did not want to express my inner self to other people. And when I did have a strong emotion, I would just rationalize it, try to make sense of it. It wasn't, quote, logical. I would tell myself I couldn't feel it if I even allowed myself to acknowledge it in the first place. And that's because we tend to, one, judge and push down the emotions. And we also tend to want to control our experience and think that that's going to change our reality, when only by going into it and being with it can you actually make the shift that is necessary to reclaim your power. When we're talking about emotions, I like to see them this way. Emotion, energy in motion. That's it. That's it. We have to take away the amount of weight that we give emotions. You are not your emotions. They are not who and what you are. I am this, right? You are not that. It is an experience that you're having. It is energy running through you. That's it. That's it. Because you are the one having the emotion. You are the eternal soul. You are the conscious observer. And when you can develop this capacity, some people call this divine masculine. I sometimes refer to it that way, but the reality is when we use these terms, it can get really confusing, because if you are not observing yourself and your life, then you can't actually go into the body and reclaim your sovereignty and do this level of work. So to have observer consciousness is just a basic facet of being a conscious human being on this planet. And the observer consciousness is developed when you develop your prefrontal cortex, which just so happens to be your third eye. And this gives you the capacity to separate from your experience, to witness it, ideally with your heart open, with neutrality, and move it, consciously and then align it to your soul truth. So we're going to talk about these steps a little bit more in detail. The very first thing is, as you develop this observer consciousness, this ability to direct your attention inward, to receive an emotion that you're having, to receive an experience that you're having, hold your heart open to just receive it. The biggest thing is that you have to not judge it, not attach to it, and not identify with it. So the judgment piece, this is bad. This is a lower vibrational emotion. That phrasing that some emotions are lower vibrational than others, a lot of how we experience something, quantum physicists know this, it's not the thing itself, it's the consciousness that we are viewing the thing with. And so if you were judging a feeling as lower vibrational because somebody else told you it's lower vibrational, or they have this idea it's lower vibrational and they're doing a scientific experiment, guess what? They're going to see it as lower vibrational. It's not lower vibrational. It's not a low vibration emotion. You are holding your heart open as a pure observer and witnessing it, because what you're doing is you're receiving your own experience, holding the high frequency of your heart open, no matter what quote vibration that emotion might be. You're not identifying with it, so it's not going to lower your vibration, quote unquote. I hope that makes sense, because that judgment of something as lower than or less than or negative will prohibit it from fully rising within you and being seen so that it can be transmuted and transformed into your truth. If you're judging it as a bad thing to be feeling, if you're judging yourself for feeling, all of this is going to stop the flow of the neutral emotion from informing you, which is the reason it's there. To identify with an emotion is basically to say, I am that. To identify with the emotion is to see yourself as that thing rather than the one having the experience. It's also when we are so identified with the emotion that you can't get out of it, which can create that victim mentality, for example. Because you're not a victim. Maybe you have been victimized in a scenario or circumstance, but that doesn't mean that you are a victim. See how we start to attach these things to our identities rather than holding, I am, period. I am a divine soul, right? I am an eternal being. I am invincible at my core. And this part of me is witnessing my human experience. This part of me is infusing its consciousness and love into my human experience, not becoming identified with the experience as who and what you are. One of the other things that we tend to do is, like I mentioned, attach to the emotion. And this can also prohibit it from informing you and moving through you. And so to attach to it is wanting it to stay with you because you've identified, but wanting it to stay with you because it's like, it can be almost like a weapon. It can feel like, oh, my anger is helping me feel powerful, so I don't want to let go of it. My anger is helping me XYZ, so I'm not going to let go of it. I have to have this thing to help me feel that way. Or my grief is helping me feel like a loving person because I'm feeling grief about this other person gone from my life, when we're really, you're almost like attaching to it instead of just allowing it to be a pure neutral emotion moving through you. That's why a lot of people get depressed, because the depression is the buildup of unprocessed emotions in your nervous system. And I have other episodes on the Soul Sovereignty podcast about the nervous system and nervous system healing that you can tune to watch and listen more about that specifically. Now, when you have the observer consciousness, you see it as a pure emotion, neutral energy. You're not pushing it down. You're not minimizing it. You're not bringing it up to try to rationalize it. You have your heart open. Then you get really curious. You talk to it. Why are you here? Not innate. Why are you here? Why are you here? What are you showing me? How can I fully receive you? What is the wisdom that you have for me? Because your emotion is helping you to see your inner experience. Your emotion is helping you see the thought and the belief underneath that is guiding it, that has created it. So if you don't see the emotion, then you're not going to get to the thought or the belief, which means you're never going to clear your subconscious mind of that which you have ingested from the external world. And 95% when we're not conscious, I think this number changes the more conscious you become, the more sovereign you become. When you're not conscious of your emotions, you cannot access the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind rules 95% of our behavior. And we don't even realize what is ruling us from below. That means you're not sovereign. You cannot be sovereign without accessing the subconscious mind. And you cannot access the subconscious mind without accessing your emotions. And that's why emotional sovereignty is essential. When you start to work with your emotions and you allow them to move. Now, sometimes the movement of that emotion requires crying. Maybe it requires just expressing the anger, moving it through you. Maybe it requires dancing. Maybe it requires going on a walk. Maybe it requires asking the trees to take a tree from you. There are many, many ways that we can move emotion. And it will only move if you don't attach, identify, judge. When you're doing that and you're opening to receive the wisdom of the emotion, then you can ask, what is the thought that I'm having that is creating this emotion? What is the belief underneath that thought? What is the belief underneath that belief? One of the future episodes will be on mental sovereignty, and I will go into a lot more detail about how to create that mental sovereignty and work with your thoughts and beliefs. But for the sake of today's conversation, what this allows you to then do is then align that thought and that belief to your soul's truth. Is this mine? Do I want to be having this? And if not, what is my inner truth? Because the emotion might be a thought, oh, I am bad if I do X, Y, Z. So this emotion is coming up of grief and fear because I'm feeling really bad because I did X, Y, Z. But your current adult self is saying, I'm not bad for that, but I'm running this old show that tells me I am. So I'm feeling unworthy and I'm feeling grief and I'm feeling alone. And the reality is that if I align my energetics to the belief that is true to me, my sovereign belief coming from my soul's truth, this emotion disappears on its own because that emotion is based on me agreeing with something my parents told me when I was 2 or 6 or whatever that is. That emotion is based on an old experience, an old belief that isn't even yours. And until we do this subconscious clearing by accessing and working with the emotional body, then it's going to keep getting pegged. And you're going to keep having that emotional experience that really isn't necessary. So that emotional freedom is going to be created when you're really looking at it and aligning it as you move it. Now, what some people will do is because they want to say high vibe. I heard this. I taught a lot of sacred body wisdom workshops last year around the country. And what I would hear people say is this fear of not being high frequency, of not being high vibe. And so they were afraid of really acknowledging and spending time with these, quote, lower vibrations, according to some people in the New Age community. And that actually prohibited them from one, receiving the wisdom, but also transforming into a higher frequency that is in alignment with divine love. We have to spend time with it and see it. If you are afraid of looking at something, you're giving it your power. I mean, it's simple. If you're afraid of looking at it, that means you're giving it your power because you are stronger than your fear. If you're afraid of looking at an emotion, where are you giving your power away? How can you reclaim your power back? And I believe the way to reclaim your power back is to look at it with that heart open neutrality and curiosity. As you then say, wow, I'm having this experience, and is it mine? Is it actually my truth? Am I afraid that this other person is going to do this thing? And so I'm minimizing and pushing down this experience of feeling unworthy, when really all I have to do is work on that belief and that frequency of unworthiness to shift out of that old pattern. And this emotion wouldn't even be arising. That's why it's important to remember, you are not your emotion. You are not your feeling. You are not that. You are not your thought. You are not your belief. You are something much grander, much more eternal than that fleeting experience. And then this recurring emotion, get even more curious, spend even more time with it to get to the root. Get to pull it out by the root. When I work with clients one-on-one, when we do the emotional work, it's very intimately connected to the energetic work, which is why I was just talking with women who came to the Greece retreat last year. There will be another one this year. So if you're interested in doing an initiation into divine feminine power in Greece, I'll put the link below. You can join us. There's a discount available until April 1st. So one of the things I was saying in our integration call from last year's retreat is that when we have these new identities that have been claimed, when we have these big transformations and we're moving forward differently, then all that is out of alignment with that new identity, with that claiming of who you are, will begin to appear to support you in this reclamation. It's showing you what is out of alignment, out of resonance with who you are now. And so that can bring up a lot of emotions. And if you're not doing the emotional work to align to this truth of who you are now, your soul truth, not the quote truth of who you were in the past, then that reclamation, that claiming of your new self, your power, your sovereignty, your own divinity is going to be harder, because you're going to get wrapped up in all of that instead of staying clear and aligned and anchoring into your truth over and over and over, which is essential to do this level of work. The amount of transformation that people experience in my containers is incredible. The amount of transformation I experience in my life is incredible, because it's based on your divinity, your soul, which creates magic. So that's it on emotional sovereignty. I like to keep these decently short so that you can listen over again if you want to, and really allow this to settle into your system, and then take out your pen and paper and start asking yourself these questions and looking at this when you have an emotion, particularly a recurring emotion, arise. And then over the next 6 weeks, we'll be going into deeper aspects of sovereignty, the emotional sovereignty, the energetic sovereignty, sexual sovereignty. So again, subscribe or go to thepathtosovereignty.com if you want to receive the emails directly into your inbox. And when you do, you will also receive a free 12 days of transformation. And I'm going to be hosting a free event on March 20th, Friday, March 20th. I will put the link for that below as well. And that will be on divine feminine sovereignty, which I won't be talking about in the podcast specifically, because all the other aspects really cover that. But divine feminine sovereignty, we're going to be specifically going into sexual sovereignty, the reclamation of that, and the becoming a vessel of truth, which is the reclamation of your voice. And then also we're going to be anchoring into your womb power. And that is in part because those 3 aspects of divine feminine sovereignty are the focus of this year's retreat in Greece, which is going to be September 26th through October 7th, which is a Saturday through a Wednesday. So it's 11 nights, 12 days in Greece together on this really powerful initiation. So I'll put all the links below, and I will look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Soul Sovereignty Podcast.